what would you say to a Jew who came to you and said, if the Jewish religious and ethical tradition cannot prevent a Jewish state, which also employs much of the language of Judaism and many of the symbols of Judaism, if it cannot prevent a state from committing this kind of starvation and slaughter, if someone said to you that that leads them to question Judaism itself, that this is Judaism's failure itself, what would you say to someone whose very belief in God and whose belief in Judaism had been brought into question by what Israel is doing in Gaza and the West Bank?
It's a very painful question, and that's what prompted me to speak. How can I live with Judaism after what is taking place now in Israel for the last year and a half to 2 years? If I had a piece of advice for the rabbinic leadership, it needs to spend more time on the prophets. It needs to reassert the ethical legacy of Judaism. We need to recover our religious voice without necessarily condemning the political behavior of the Jewish state. The critique that we exercise is no different from the critique that Samuel threw at David, or that Elijah threw at Naboth, or that Jeremiah threw at Judah before the final destruction. There is an incredibly powerful image in the prophet Ezekiel. In chapter 10 of Yechezkel, he portrays the departure of God from the temple. God exits slowly because God is still hoping that he will be re-embraced. But there are no willing takers. God leaves the temple. And of course, the symbolism is that when the deity is no longer in the sanctuary can be destroyed. I think that in some ways, Judaism is at that critical moment. Are we going to be able to defend Judaism, which has the burden of the Chilul Hashem taking place on the West Bank and on Gaza? Will we be able to live that Judaism? And if we don't speak out now, it may be too late. This may be our final moment until, in raising the ethical constraints that need to be imposed on the Israeli government, we are defending Judaism. A Judaism that is going to have to survive this catastrophe. And how will we be able to live with ourselves if we were silent? If I can just go back to a bit of history, in the Nazi period, the religious institutions were silent. The Protestant world was taken over by the Nazis. Nazi ministers, Nazi flags all over the church. The 9th of September was a holy day for Protestant churches. The Catholic Church
the 9th of September, you're talking about Kristallnacht.
Yeah, and before, did they protest the burning of books? Did the churches speak out about the boycott of Jewish stores? Did the churches condemn euthanasia, which was implemented in 1939 by the Hitler regime? It was only in 1941 that you had a Catholic bishop in Munster, Galen, speak out in public against the killing of those who were incapable of caring for themselves. Where is the religious voice today so that long after today, we can still proudly be Jews?
You were referring in what you were saying to the notion that in Jewish tradition sees the idea of a covenant between God and the Jewish people. Do you feel that what Israel is doing in Gaza represents a kind of a breaking, a violation of that breach, that covenant between the Jewish people and God?
Yes, I do, because I think the human life that is destroyed in order to regain possession of the West Bank and in order to annex the West Bank and Gaza, I think the ethical cost is far too great, and it will make it very difficult to embrace Judaism qua religion long after this period of history is over. It took the Catholic Church a long time to live down its response to the Protestant Reformation. The Counter-Reformation did not bring great credit to the Catholic Church. The Protestant churches in Germany had to live down their abominable silence in the face of Nazi oppression. We, qua Jews, are going to have to live with the legacy of the Chilul Hashem on the West Bank and in Gaza.
One of the things that I've often wondered about is how did it become the case that in so many Jewish communities, so many synagogues, the test of whether you are a Jew in good standing, whether you're a good Jew, is whether you support Israel basically right or wrong, not whether you keep Shabbat, not whether you keep kosher, not whether you lay tefillin, not whether you give tzedakah or visit the sick or wash the bodies of the dead. Was it always this way? And why has it become that this idea of what makes you a good Jew is your support for the state of Israel rather than these much, much deeper things that are in our tradition?
There's nothing that succeeds like success. The state of Israel is an incredible achievement. And I don't have to begin with its bombing of Iran. The achievement of Israel in 1967 was incredible. And that's what basically ignited the Federation world.
The Federation being the Jewish communal institutions.
The Jewish communal institution, and that Federation world developed the capacity to produce enormous funds to support activities in Israel. And the interplay between Israel and American Jewry is far-flung and deep-seated. The Ramah camps, which are funded by the conservative movement, have some 11,000 youngsters in camps every summer, and they are staffed by hundreds of shlichim, of Israelis coming to serve on the camp staffs. There is an intimate connection, physically and familially and institutionally, between American Jewry and the state of Israel. And that's part of the reason that it is incumbent on rabbis to begin to speak on behalf of Judaism. How will we continue to live after this messianic debacle in Israel as proud Jews? Will we sever our relationship with this hypocritical religion? Will we find some other place to express our yearning for transcendence? That is a critical question, I think, that religious leaders need to ponder.
This has been a free preview of my conversation. If you'd like to hear the rest and support my work, please consider subscribing at peterbeinart.substack.com.